BWI Live Friday. I'm Thomas Frank Carr. We are here
Friday.
to talk. Yeah. It's our Friday on the live show. It's Thursday, and I just been like thinking that today. There's been a lot going on this week. This has been. You ever have those weeks that feel perpetually like a Tuesday? Not even like a Monday, just a Tuesday, where everything is forever away on both sides. And I've just been looking forward to this particular week being over. I don't know what it is. Apparently, everything's the same way at Zoe's work, where it's just like, we're done with this particular week of July. So, Ryan, how you doing? What's going on?
Not as bad as you, apparently. I got some appointments I got to do later with my kids, but that's not too bad. But I would say, yes, during football season, every day feels like a Tuesday, but that's what we signed up for, so that's okay. We watch sports for a living, so I'm not complaining. But it's slow right now recruiting-wise, so we'll get through it. We got some stuff we can hit on. Obviously, rankings updates we can talk about a little bit. Some new 2026 D-line offers, which doesn't surprise me too much and makes sense after Carter Gooden ended up going to UCLA. And we'll see where things go from there. But come on, D. Frank, pep up.
I'm sorry. I spent thousands of dollars on my YouTube setup here, and none of it has worked all week long. So I'm just salty about it. Like, I try to. Here's the thing: is like it is unprofessional to come in here and bitch and moan about all that stuff, and yet it's the one thing playing on loop in my head as I see myself in a very pixelated way of moving on the camera. That none of this is working for some reason this week. So not professional whatsoever to be complaining on a live show. So sorry about that. Ryan, you got to help us out here and talk about some of the new Penn State defensive line offers. As you mentioned, Carter Gooden goes somewhere else. Damari Simeon goes somewhere else. Garrett Witherington goes somewhere else. Penn State has a quality stack of defensive tackles, but clearly they wanted to add another player in the class of 2026. So some new offers going out this week, as you mentioned. Let's get into that today and tell us who we should be focusing on and how this works now, given that it is a dead period, quiet period, no contact period. I don't know how to properly phrase this part where kids aren't coming on campus, right? That's just the main thing.
Correct. And sorry, T. Frank, I just now noticed I have issues on my end, too, because it will not let me connect to my microphone. So we're going through AirPods today. Sorry if it is not the best audio. I'm just going to blame T. Frank, apparently.
This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm talking about. 100% of the people that have been on the show this week have had some sort of problem with like, it's driving me nuts.
We need to
put this stuff on autopilot for like a year, and then it's like, we don't know why that's happening. I don't know. Anyway,
we'll figure it out.
Tell us about our D-line.
It's July. It's okay. As long as we figure it out the season, we'll survive.
There's a standard, Ryan. That's the problem. It's like there's a standard, and then when you deviate for the standard for unforeseen reasons, that's what really gets me going. That's what really makes me mad.
Line guy, we'll blame rivals. Thanks for that. Two new offers. Djidjou Ba, defensive lineman committed to Wisconsin out of Germantown, Tennessee. I went out over the weekend, 6'3", 275. Talked to him a little bit. He says that Barnes actually offered him a while ago. He didn't know about it, which was interesting. Sometimes that does actually happen. That's not something I haven't heard before. Whether it's lost in translation via coaches or whatever it may be. That's what he said the conversation was about. But either way, it certainly appears that Penn State's going to be pursuing him. He did say he plans to visit at some point this fall. Time will tell, right? We still have however many weeks to go until the season, so we'll circle back to that when the time is there. But certainly a 6'3", 275, looks to be a pretty strong player, good hands, all that kind of stuff. So that makes a lot of sense there. He's pretty raw too, to some degree. Steve, I don't know how much you've watched him so far.
Yeah, just watching the highlights one time through, like you see a lot of, I like highlights that show a lot of different examples of applicable football understanding. So beating zone concepts, using his hands, having a bull rush, having a speed rush. He shows a lot of different aspects of playing D-line and active athletic player with good length. I mean, this is always the conversation, right, Ryan, where it's like, oh no, they missed on all their top guys. And yes, that's true, but then suddenly you find a guy like this after all that cycle, and I'm like, oh, this guy's pretty good. Like, this is a pretty good prospect based on these highlights.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see where things go. I mean, that's why we always stress, like, one, they're going to flip guys. That'll happen with time with 2026. But also at the same time, there's guys going to be like Ba here who, potentially could move up in the rankings with really good seasons and things like that. So I still got to, do a little more research as far as talking to Charles, as far as what they kind of think of him. But one thing we do know, as far as Charles and our scouting staff, is Emanuel Ruffin, and that was the offer that just went out last night out of Alabama. I forget the town, obviously, off the top of my head. I apologize, but he had a really, really good showing at the National Under Armour camp, which is kind of we've seen this before, right? With guys kind of going to these camps, like Elijah Littlejohn, for example. Really strong showing, great numbers, all those things. What's interesting about Ruffin is, at least from the impression I get, is that it looked like he was pretty set on LSU and Ohio State. Well, LSU and Ohio State then, I think, filled their classes basically from kind of what I've seen so far. He was I think he was planning to come in on July 4th. And then on June 26th, he put out a tweet saying, hey, recruitment's open again. Of course, the next day, Ohio State gets Damari Simeon. And then and then 5 days before that, LSU got a potential 5-star as well. So I think that's kind of what kept this recruitment open, because it looked like he was pretty focused on those two schools. But he's certainly a very solid prospect, a 4-star player. He's right outside the 300 at the moment, but I think number 26 or 23, in the industry ranking as far as defensive tackles goes, 6'3", 290. Another strong base, all those kind of things that Penn State's looking for. But at the end of the day, they got to get him on campus. So that's kind of we want to talk about these offers and dig into them a little bit and figure out their interests, and that's something I'll work on today with Ruffin. But at the end of the day, until we get to September, really that Oregon game, I'll keep circling that, as far as that's where, if you're getting 2026 guys on campus, it's going to be whatever that day is, September 27th or whatever it may be. That's when I think we'll have a real good feel for who are these guys we got to keep an eye on.
Yeah, as you mentioned, Emanuel Ruffin here, he's the 218th overall player in the Rivals industry ranking. 123 is his highest ranking by 247. So a guy with consensus 4-star, uncommitted, which as the way you framed it makes more sense. But a guy that's uncommitted this far into the process with that kind of profile is surprising. And then you look at Ba, as you mentioned here, a 3-star ranking, 6'3", 275. These are some interesting prospects. I actually thought, looking at Ruffin, he was bigger than that, just because of that length and the kind of the frame he presents. Are you seeing anything in terms of what Penn State wants out of these guys in style, profile, size? Is there anything you've noticed there?
I think they just need depth.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's really about the player. It's about the depth. The D-line room needs depth, right? I mean, you have Zane will be gone this year. You have Caleb Artis, who's a redshirt junior, right? Who am I missing? Alonzo Ford will be gone this year, right? So those are 3 guys there. But then it's really young after that. There's a bunch of redshirt freshmen. There's a redshirt sophomore. Who am I not thinking of? There's some. I mean, Liam Andrews, I guess, is in that mix. There's a couple guys there, but and obviously Owen Wakefield just came in. But Ty Blanding, yeah, that's what I was thinking of. But I see a lot of very young and potentially unproven players right now. And they are seeing a need for, hey, we got to get some depth here. I think the transfer portal will be a potential avenue for Penn State to address that, as they did with Owen Wakefield this year. But that to me, that's what it is. Because the pickings are slim right now, man. I mean, I did a story the other day. I think we'll get into it here a little bit, but I think it was 40 or so uncommitted players in the top 500 or something like that. I don't have the exact number in front of me at the moment. I put it in the story. You guys read the 3 thoughts on 2026, that was in there. But my point there is just it's very low. And obviously there's going to be flips. There's going to be things that change things. But, there's not a lot of uncommitted guys out there that are Penn State quality, if that makes sense, which to me is always kind of top 600 and up. Top 500 up is preferred. Those are the kind of guys that I think Penn State always needs to be shooting for. There's always going to be a couple, outside of that. But you really want to be getting for those, high 3 stars.
And those are evaluations that the staff makes that they think that the consensus there is wrong, right? So they're not taking guys that they don't think are in that kind of tier of player. It's more that what's the perception versus what the internal evaluation is. Because
it's not so much about the stars. Yeah, sorry to cut you off, Frank, but especially nowadays, man, the higher the star is, the more money they cost. Period. End of story. Right? I mean, that is a fact. So I think that's part of the reason why Penn State was doing everything they could leading up to June to stack talented guys that they really liked a lot, who maybe, didn't have that top 150 kind of rating and all those things, because truthfully, I mean, that's the game now. And it's wild how much our industry basically impacts kids' lives. Like, I look at Luke Wafel, for example, right? He gets all that money. Like, Luke Wafel, yeah, he became a 5-star, but like, it was like only like, maybe I want to say January, February, where he was like a 3-star or unranked. Like, it was like just
same thing with Carter Meadows,
quickness.
right? Like, both of those guys were not 5-stars, and then suddenly they vault up into that stratosphere.
Yeah, for sure. I forget exactly when Carter was, but like, Wafel just pops out because we know the numbers and all those kind of things. Like, it was only 4 or 5 months ago where Luke Wafel would not got anywhere close to the amount of money he got from USC, and it's just wild how much this industry now impacts kids' financial futures in a lot of ways. So that's a long way of saying it's okay to get high 3-star players, guys, because they're the ones that Penn State's going to be building a lot of their classes around moving forward, unless there's this massive influx of money that right now doesn't seem to be there.
Yeah, that's an interesting dynamic for the future here. Joe asked this question. We'll get to this more when we talk about 2027, but he has a question that leads right from that conversation of getting guys on board maybe before they become 4-stars, or maybe just guys that want to join Penn State because they want to be Penn State football players. He asked, is Franklin Company in a strong enough position with a few key 2027 guys who could pull the trigger sooner rather than later? Who are they? Thanks for considering the question.
If you're 2027, I don't know why you would decide anytime soon. There's no reason to, especially after you just watched what just happened. And look, these guys are very tied in with the 2026 guys. They've been taking visits with these players for so long. It's a financial game, and the longer you drag things out and improve your stock, it could be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and in Luke Wafel's case, maybe millions of dollars difference between committing early and not. And I know Penn State probably doesn't want to hear that. If the recruiting staff is watching us or anybody else, they probably don't want to hear that. But like, that's the truth. So, right now, we were watching obviously for a long time for quarterback dominoes to start falling. The year before, obviously, is when that really started the fall, like I think June. I mean, Troy Hoon obviously committed last summer. Diabell, a bunch of guys kind of made moves in the summer, and that really hasn't happened yet for 2027. It will happen at some point. I wouldn't be shocked if it happened even, early in the season, something like that, because once 2 or 3 of those top guys fall, it goes quick. So that would be someone I would circle as far as a Peter Bork or Keegan Crozier. But again, like, if you're a top wide receiver, or if you're Maxwell Hiller, go on and on and on as far as the top guys in the region, I don't know what the incentive would be to decide now. Just go take your visits too and enjoy that process as well, because now you're the top guys on campus. Last year they were the sophomores, right? That and obviously they get a lot of attention, the Maxwell Hillers of the world, but still those juniors were the guys that got the focus of most visits. And now you're the kings. Now you're the king of the castle. Go enjoy those visits.
Yeah, we'll be talking about those 27 guys coming up in just a little bit. I think Penn State fans will be happy about where Keemon Spell landed in the latest updates. The Rivals 300 for 26 and 27 came out. That's what I should have been talking about. Like, what's coming up on the show today, other than bitching and moaning about the tech setup for today. That's what's coming up later, because those were announced this week. So we'll be discussing those with Ryan. And of course, we have a special guest for you here to end the show. 2026 Penn State defensive tackle Isaac Chukura joins the show for 15 minutes to sit down for us to get to know him a little bit here between Ryan and I, and then, of course, for you to get to know him, what kind of player he is. And spoiler alert, he's a really impressive dude. Like, really, like, well thought out, great interview, and also a really impressive football player on the field, in the practice, what we've seen
his
of him.
Feet.
So, yeah.
And his hands are good, man. He's going to end up being – I wouldn't be shocked if he just moved up in the rankings a little bit. He become an 89. I'm not sure. I know he moved up in the rankings at least like 1 point out of the 80 scale, the 80-90 scale. But I would be shocked if he ended up being a 4-star. It really maybe comes down to competition and all those kind of things and how other guys go. But I don't know. Him and Amari Polidor were probably the 2 guys that stood out to me the most at camp this year. I was really impressed with Chukwurah and Amari Polidor. I mean, I was watching him cover Deion Brown, who, by the way, Deion Brown really impressed me too. But watching him, just
made it look easy.
How fluid he is. Heck of an athlete.
One thing I wanted to ask him, and we didn't get a chance to, was how he sees the development of guys like Xavier Gilliam and Zane Durant as far as his fit within the Penn State football program. As a guy who's 6'2", I didn't want to have the conversation of undersized guy who's 6'2", 265 when I'm, half that size again. But at the same time, like it's in football terms, it's a real thing, except that he's got, I think, certain tools that make him even more of an outlier for his size and how, I don't know, does he compare himself to Zane Durant? Does he see himself as a guy who could play early? Because we talked about, coming up in that conversation, we'll talk about how big he wants to be by the time he gets to camp and how he wants to develop before he gets to Penn State. Just all these things of very considered things and a really interesting timeline for a guy like Chukura, who is not, as you mentioned, a 5-star prospect, but somebody that I think both of us have high expectations for.
Truthfully, good question. You wouldn't have got an answer for that. And I mean that just from the perspective of, I talk to high school kids all the time. Like, I've asked those kind of questions in the past. They're just kind of like, I don't know, I got to learn more. Now, what I mean by that, though, T. Frank, is that's a great question come signing day. Because when they watch the seat, like think about Isaac. Like, obviously, he watched Penn State last year, but he's going to be so much more clued in on this program now this year compared to last year. Now he has that offer, he's committed, all those kind of things. Like, that's a question that I personally would be asking guys in November and December, just because of, how much more knowledge they gain as far as obviously visiting and all those kind of things, but really watching the team, staying in touch with the coaching staff. Like, that's the kind of answer that you ask at the end, because I just think you'll get a way better answer.
Gotcha. David K asks, how is Penn State not going to fall behind in this new climate, meaning NIL, and what Ryan said about aiming for high 3-star guys? David, we've done several shows on that. The answer is we'll find out.
We'll find out. Here's what I would say. I mean, obviously their best class is the 2022 class, which is right when NIL was starting, right? Like, I would have loved to, if Drew Aller and Nick Singleton, obviously Denai and Katron and even Abdul was in that class. Like, if those guys were 2023 players, I'd be very curious to see how it played out. Now, at the same time, I mean, they've gotten their fair share of really good talent over the last couple of years, too. Most of them are offensive tackles from the region who committed early, or offensive linemen, we'll say. So I do think that's a big part of it. I also do feel like we have to see how this clearinghouse stuff shakes out, because there's a fight going on right now as far as what Deloitte and the I don't know, the governance, as far as, I can't describe it right now, as far as how these outside collective deals are going to work. And then obviously the revenue sharing, I kind of feel like the collectives are going to get pushed back a little bit, because that's what the schools want. That's what the presidents want. That's what the commissioners want. Like, there's a lot of people that want to tame it down. The problem with that is now you set this bar. How are recruits going to react to that then when, someone like Luke Wayfield's getting, $1 million plus a year, where, like, potentially if you do bring this down, that's not going to be there in a couple of years. So I just feel like we're still, I think we talked about this maybe a podcast or two ago, but I feel like we're just 2 years away from really kind of knowing what the climate is, because there's still, like, this past year, man, everybody, again, backloading. USC paid their whole roster before they even got to revenue sharing. That's why all this money's around for them to pay stupid things. And you need just big money backers to do that. A lot of schools do that. Penn State did it to some degree. Everybody did that to some degree. So this year's still not the best example of what's really going to be the climate. Even next year, I'm not sure we'll be quite there. There's still going to be some battles. It's going to happen. There's too many court cases and precedents set for that to not continue. My thought process would be, when we get to that 2027 season and beyond, hopefully then we start to really kind of understand the climate, where the bar, how low is the bar, how high is the bar. Obviously, if we ever get the collective bargaining, that's what really needs to happen. But
so that's interesting.
Who knows?
That was what you described there, and I haven't necessarily read all these things. And if I did, I probably wouldn't know what I was reading. But what you described was a soft salary cap of there's a certain amount that you can get fair market value, fair deals, etc. But salary caps only work when people agree to them, collective bargaining, which is the part that is missing from this whole equation, and the part that we're going to have to figure out how to get there, I think, as a society for this particular sport, or else it's not going to – none of this really makes sense. None of this really works otherwise. I also think that generally – this is unsustainable for all but maybe the most extreme of the cases and situations, that you can't keep spending incrementally more millions of dollars in an ecosystem that, yes, makes a lot of money, but doesn't have the structure to control itself. The reason the NFL prints money basically is that they control their spending. Otherwise, like if you had Jerry Jones competing with whomever, pick somebody else that is a famous owner that spends a lot of money and is dumb about their money, you would have teams in more financial trouble than you do, because they basically don't have to worry about paying their employees out of the profits that they make. Like that's all baked into the TV deals. So anyway, let's talk more about money. Let's talk about your money, which is actually more important and more interesting to you than what Dak Prescott makes for the Cowboys, which is probably more than he needs to make given his status in the quarterback ecosphere. Now that I've lit that on fire, let's talk about My Perfect Franchise and Andy Ludicky. If you want to leave the corporate rat race for the American dream, and by the way, the American dream is controlling your future, determining your own destiny, being the captain of your own ship. Is that something you want from your life? Maybe you're in a side hustle and you want to grow that into something more significant. Or maybe you have what everyone's looking for, but you want to leave a legacy to your family. You want to diversify. Maybe you just want to continue building your wealth. Andy Ludicky at My Perfect Franchise is a franchise consultant with extensive experience doing those things. Diversifying his assets, buying into multiple franchises, running them successfully, and then sometimes not running them successfully and having to sell them. He's been through all of it, and he wants to share his information, his expertise on the buying process, on the management process, and on where to place you best based on your skills and criteria. He goes through an extensive vetting process to find out your information, and then he puts you in the right place as best he can. Nothing comes with a guarantee. Football, business, it doesn't matter. Nothing comes with a guarantee, but having more information and having a leg up, having a cheat code of understanding the rules of the game helps you out so much more. And here's the great thing. His services are 100% free to you. So call him 404-973-9901 or contact him, Andy, at myperfectfranchise.net to get on his calendar, schedule a time to meet to see if you're right for this. Because he'll also tell you, hey, you're not right for this or you're not right for the business that you want to run. He's not going to tell you what to do with your money in terms of he won't do whatever you want, but he will strongly encourage you in what he thinks is best. I think that's somebody who shows the integrity of, I'm not here just to get a commission. Like, that's not what he's doing this for. He wants you to be successful as much as he wants himself to be successful. And that's somebody that in that situation, the incentives and the character all line up. So check him out. Once again, 404-973-9901. Also, it is this week. It is the Happy Valley Brewers Fest going on in the Porter North lot right across from Beaver Stadium. We've been telling you tangentially. We've been talking about it. Yesterday, Greg and I talked about the stadium and the development and how it's all going. Go see for yourself. Go to the Happy Valley Brewers Fest. That's this Saturday, July 19th. It's in the Porter North lot. You can just walk around the stadium. Like, just walk around the construction site, check it out, take some pictures. Oh, by the way, and enjoy 75 breweries from Pennsylvania and beyond. A lot of Pennsylvania State College, Penn State connections are going to be there, even from out of the region. They have breweries from as far away as Maine that are showing up. So, VIP General Administration tickets are available now. You should get them as soon as possible. It's coming up this week. Don't let those VIP tickets get sold out. You want to go there. You want to get the special pours. You want to get the small batch stuff that for the first hour, if I'm walking around, I was at Arts Fest this weekend, and I was trying all the specialty wines and cocktails over at People's Choice that people were giving out in terms of like, hey, here's our barrel-aged Chardonnay that you should try. They probably didn't bring infinite number of bottles of that. Same thing here for Happy Valley Brewers Fest. You might want to get those VIP admission tickets so you can check out what's new, what's hot from places all over the area, including Anti-Fragile, who's going to be there as well as one of the presenting sponsors here for the Happy Valley Brewers Fest. Again, that is going to be July 19th. 3 p.m. is the open for VIP. 4 p.m. is the open for the general admission. HappyValleyBrewersFest.com. Ryan, I've only been saying it for 2 months. We're going to get it right. HappyValleyBrewersFest.com to go check out and get tickets so you can come up and hang out this weekend. The weather's been great. I know it's been a little bit rainy, but it's like 70 degrees and perfect today. So, I don't know. I haven't checked the weather this weekend, but if it's anything like today, it's going to be excellent. Okay.
Stormy Sunday. Beautiful Saturday.
Perfect. Yeah, just you want that little slice of golden sunshine there for Saturday. Let's talk about the class of 2026. Latest update, the Rivals integration, it's all happened. Can you explain first and foremost how the formula has changed? Not like the actual formula, but like just generally how things have reshuffled for the class of 2026 now that there's one fewer in the industry ranking. And then, of course, like how did that affect where players moved? And then who moved up, who moved down in the class of 2026?
Yeah. So let's start with the fact that there's obviously only 3 services now: ESPN 24/7, Rivals, formerly on 3, however you want to talk about the brand. But that changed all the percentages of how this is going to work. It used to be there was a little bit weighted more towards what would be on 3 and 24/7. They had about 30%, 35% weighted into that industry average. Now it's straight up 33, 33, 33. Repeating obviously. So it's an even shakeup between Rivals 24/7. And ESPN, which I like. People get a little upset with ESPN sometimes as far as their rankings go, which, to be fair, I know those guys well. Like, they are just very understaffed. ESPN has kind of gutted them. So I do not hold that against them, just compared to what I know 24/7 has and what on 3/Rivals has as far as, people really putting in the time. Now, what ESPN also does have is a connection through UC Report and all those Under Armour camps and stuff. So they get excellent testing data. I think that's why you're seeing Ben Ezekiel, by the way, who was an MVP, at the Columbus Under Armour camp. He's a 4-star now. Amari Polidor put up excellent numbers in a testing session. So UC Report goes to like IMG sometimes and St. Francis, all these massive camps to test their players or massive teams. Amari Polidor crushed it at that. Look at him now; he's a 4-star at ESPN. So that plays a little bit into it. I think it's actually a good thing. I mean, I'm a big proponent of testing numbers and measurables and trying to look. Now, again, let's not not overthink, how important the tape is either. But just from 15, 16 years of doing this, when I started, I was more so focused on looking at the tape and all that kind of stuff. Where those measurables are massively more important and something that I put a little more weight into now. 5, 6, 7, 8 years later, whatever it may be. But so now the industry rankings have had some massive changes. But first, before we get to that, let's note that the Rivals 300, just Rivals on 3's rankings, did change a little bit. Truthfully, not a whole lot to talk about. Jackson Ford moved up 62 spots. Tyson Harley moved up 16 spots. Messiah Mickens moved down 12 spots. 12 spots is really not that much in the grand scheme of things. So the main thing was Jackson Ford moving up 62 spots, moved up a handful of positions, largely just because a few other edge rushers moved down. That was the big part of it. They thought that Jackson should be a little bit closer to, what is he at, 26 there, T-Frank, I believe it is.
26, yes.
Yeah, where he was previously just like a fringe top 30 guy. So not a whole lot of movement there, to be honest with you. But the big takeaway from that update then, of course, was really how it impacted the industry rankings. And that's what I focused on primarily on Monday. Amari Polidor is a great example of one, Rivals/On3. We moved him up to a higher 3-star. But then obviously when you cut out Rivals, who had him ranked, previous Rivals had him ranked pretty low, and the fact that ESPN now has him as a 4-star, that's how you move up 422 spots to number 474 in the country. Isaac Chukura moved up 200 spots. I think Marlon Bright and Jack Fuchs like Books moved up 250 or so spots as well. I think Fuchs was 327. So my point is there was a handful of guys in that middle tier who were impacted greatly by that move or by that, that change in the way the industry rankings work. I still think there's a lot of guys who are being slept on. So we can get in that kind of that 3 thoughts article that I did a little bit on Monday. Daryl Carey right now, he's technically LeVar Keys is the lowest ranked player in the class, but Daryl Carey looks like the biggest mistake, I would say, so far when I look at what he brings. And I think there's a good chance we can get that one fixed because we have gathered some more testing numbers and things like that. Athletically, he's a bigger freak than I thought he was. Just as far as his broad jumps go, really good 40 times. Obviously, 6'2", 185 too. He's going to be pushing a little bit closer to 195 by the time the season starts. So he's the one that when this all popped, Fitz and I were like, whoa, that doesn't seem correct. And he actually even moved up a little bit. But I think we have him. I think Rivals. What does it on say there, T. Frank? Number 112 at safety. Like that's a massive mistake. I think this is a top 50 safety, and that might be selling him short. And we'll get that stuff ironed out. There's a reason that there's still 3-4 updates to go until this is all done. And what matters is that final update. But hey, we got to talk about something, right? Especially in mid-July. So to me, then, when I look at the industry rankings this year, Rodgers is still a 3-star player. He is, we have him as one of the, I think, top 25 receivers in the country, but he still ranks pretty lowly. I believe it was for 24/7 and ESPN. All he really needs is one of those sites to get him into the ballpark.
Oh, and by the way,
firmly be a 4-star.
Talking to some of the guys this summer, the local 247 guys also not happy with where he's listed in their database, and they were telling me why, like some of the feedback they've gotten. So there is a consensus that Jasir Rodgers needs to be a better, more highly ranked prospect because, as you just mentioned, 184 is much closer to where I think all of us think he is than the 99th receiver in America.
Yeah, to me, he's similar to Carey. Like, he's a top 50 player. And, I mean, Carey at top 50 for safety is probably shooting low. Top 50 for wide receivers about right, just because of how many wide receivers there are nationally. It's always kind of that position that dominates those on 300, rival 300, top 247, whatever it may be. The wide receiver and, like, offensive line, those kind of positions usually just are just have more numbers than everybody else. So, to me, Jasir Rodgers, if either of those sites can bump him up to the top 50 or so range, which I think is fair. Again, I like our rating at 25. I think he is a freak of an athlete. I think he's going to be awesome. But at the same time, I assume they want to catch his senior season film, all those kind of things. And I understand that policy too. That was something that, we get a lot of questions sometimes about guys making massive moves in July when, they haven't done a whole lot or even they haven't gone to camps or whatever it may be. Our staff's rebuttal is always, well, yeah, because we focus in on them more. You can only do so much. I mean, there's 900 some guys that we're trying to evaluate. You only watch so many games for so many, right? But if you kind of get a testing number or two on this guy or a reason to look back on this guy, there is reason then to watch another game, to watch a third game, a fourth game. And we're trying to always watch complete game film. And that's not easy to do, with so many players, right? That, T. Frank. I don't need to explain that to you.
I don't even have access. Yeah, they at least have access to the stuff that's available for, people that need it.
Right. So
it's tough out here on the streets trying to find the YouTubes and the high school websites, and it'd be great if it was all on the one database.
But it's not even out there. They're kind of doing the same with a lot of that stuff too. To be fair, but at the same time, it's just there's only so many scouts to go around, and so many players to evaluate. But long story short, Penn State has I think it's their credit of 11 4-star players, 13 3-star players, which is kind of on pace with what they've been for a while now in recent years. It's a little bit lower. They're missing the 5-star guy. I think when we looked at the ratings the other day, they're closer to Michigan, or they're closer to, I think, the top 10 as far as from a point perspective than it is Washington behind them. Is that what it is? So Michigan, what is that? 90.96. I can't read them.
90.995.
995. Penn State's what?
89.9.
So barely 1 point behind them. And then what's Washington right below them?
88.
So they're a full point. Yeah, but they're a full point, 88. So my point is that 11, 10 to 16 range is very tight. And basically, to me, what Penn State's missing to be right on the fringe of a top 10 team is a 5-star kind of player. Look at every school that has a 5-star. Clemson and Florida, the only other ones that don't have a 5-star. Now, of course, you need top 150 players, as you wrote recently, T. Frank. You need those top 200 players. That's the difference between Clemson and Florida and Penn State right now, where Florida has twice as many top, I think it's 200 or so players as Penn State. I think they have 8. Penn State has 4. And then Clemson has, I think, I want to say 3 or 4 top 100 players compared to just one for Penn State and Kevin Brown. So that's the difference. But again, if you get you football Andrew Olish like you kind of did last year, like that's the difference there of Penn State being a move up. Last thing I will say on this subject here is, and this was the main thing that probably stood out to me, is the floor of this class is actually pretty damn good right now. All but 2 or 3 players, I believe, I think all but LeVar Keys are ranked in the top 650 right now. Okay. So for some perspective, like that has not been the case the past couple of years. Like they've always had multiple 3-4 guys, ranked below that threshold. I bring this up just because I also brought up the topic of there's only so many 4-star and 3-star players to go around. Again, flips will impact this, but as these rankings expand, I think right now we're counting 17 or 18 as more guys commit and it goes to 19, 20, 21, 22, Penn State's high floor compared to a school like Florida State, for example, which I believe is ranked a couple spots ahead of them, but has multiple guys ranked in the thousands. Well, that's where Penn State's able to move up over, a school like Florida State, or I'm not exactly, I haven't gone through the math with Tennessee, and I know Tennessee has multiple guys that they're still after, but like, let's see that there. They got a 747 and multiple guys in the 1000s. And I'm sure those guys will move up with time as well. And I don't want to overthink it because it's not perfect, right? Everything will get added and changed. But my point with all this is, like, I still think a top 15 class is doable. Yes, they need to flip a guy or two. That would be great. Find Emanuel Ruffin, for example, a 4-star guy that we haven't talked about at all until today, basically. Get something like that and then flip one of those guys that got away. Then you should probably firmly have a top 15 class. But for the most part, I'm happy to see Amari Polidor get recognized because I feel like he really showed a lot this year. There are a couple others as well. Isaac Chukwurah, we moved him up, and then obviously, other sites are high on him too. So it was good to see from an industry ranking perspective, a couple of those guys truly get their due.
Yeah, and I also want to point out in this particular, it is a less and less salient point now that like USC, Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan, all ahead of Penn State as far as Big Ten teams. But now every team's a Big Ten team that matters. It's either SEC or Big Ten. Like, I know that there's an independent Notre Dame there. I know Clemson's there. And by the way, Notre Dame benefited greatly from the latest update with a lot of guys, including Grayson McHugh going to 13th overall in the country.
Yeah.
Wow. Like, they benefited from the latest update.
His potential is awesome, man. I don't want to rub salt in the wound, but I mean, like Kevin Brown, without a doubt, will play or should play before Grayson McHugh, unless obviously Grayson McHugh gets thrown into a situation.
And right now is a better football player, right?
Like, absolutely. No doubt about that.
Better football
No doubt about that. His long-term potential is likely as a guard. Obviously, McHugh's more as a tackle. And I think that's where oftentimes fans get things mistaken as far as what we're trying to do right now. What these rankings are trying to do is project which of these prospects have the best NFL potential. That is basically that's why there are 32 5-star players, because there are 32 first-round draft picks. That's the whole premise behind that. So, look, obviously, I'm a massive Kevin Brown fan. We've been talking about Kevin Brown on this podcast for 2+ years. I do believe he's a 5-star talent. We'll see how his season goes. Obviously, he missed most of last season. Do I think Grayson McHugh is 13 in the country? That's a little high for my liking. But I do believe Grayson McHugh has incredible talent. And that's why he was so important for Travis.
This is a similar conversation to where we were with Garrett Sexton. And I know I was a huge fan of Garrett Sexton. I don't think that from a production standpoint, he was the 73rd or 50th or wherever he was of top 100 player verified. But the potential of a guy who was so big and fluid and moved so well at 6'7", that was why he was there, projecting his traits towards a higher ceiling.
Williams.
And exactly. And Javen maybe not being as big, but being so athletic for his size and being athletic and 300 pounds, that's the part of this conversation that is the distortion field, right? Of the potential, the long-term potential of a guy who's 6'7", who moves like that in Grayson McHugh versus a guy who's 6'4.5" and moves like that as Kevin Brown. We mentioned this before, the last conversation we had about offensive linemen. Outliers exist, absolutely. But you're not banking on that. And so, like, there's a certain law of averages when it comes to the actual rankings here and whether or not they matter, given that 58th overall is still in the second round of the NFL draft. If we're saying 32 5-stars and then a second-round tackle or a second-round offensive lineman, that dude is starting in the NFL. So we're talking about the difference of a guy who's in the, it's at that point, it's finances for the player as opposed to, their actual projection to the next level.
Right, which is why I also just bring up that floor of 650, right? It is it's a 20-some kid class. 20-some plus kids in the top 650 is really good. That's not common. I mean, they had 3, 4, 5 guys outside of that number the last handful of years in a couple classes. So, yes, I understand the whole mindset of, you got to have 5-stars, and I agree. You got to have those 100 guys. If you want to be Penn State and you want to stay at this level, or you want to win national championships. Let's clarify. Penn State should be in the playoffs for foreseeable future, right? With the expansion, all those kind of things. There's enough financial backing, all that kind of stuff that I'd be very surprised if Penn State's goes a couple years without being a playoff. That should not happen anymore. But there's a difference between making the playoffs and being a national title championship contender, and that often is sometimes, those special players do make a difference. Now, I would also argue it's those special players at quarterback and wide receiver and a couple positions, defensive ends, defensive tackles. There's a couple positions that do matter more than others. And to be honest with you, those are often offensive tackle is a great example. Like, it is a premier position in the NFL, premier position in college now. And that's why I think someone like Kevin Brown is kind of sitting outside of that, because everybody thinks, well, yeah, he could play tackle in college, and he might, and he probably will to some degree.
Yeah.
But long term, he's probably an interior guy. That's where his potential is best.
Yeah. Let's talk about the class of 2027, because we still got to get to Isaac here to end the show. This is the next great hope for Penn State fans, I would say, given where we have Keemon Spell and Khalil Taylor here on the screen if you're watching on the YouTube side, part of the intro. But there's a certain feeling of what you just said. Tackle's really important. You got Maxwell Hiller in the region. You say, if you're a 2027 commit, why would you ever commit right now if money is a factor for you?
Well,
so where are they in terms of guys that already are committed? Where are they landing in the update? And then who are the guys that we have our eyes on that are a part of this 2027 update?
Well, I'll stress that Penn State's done a really good job in even this 2026 class of like keeping the guys that committed early firmly committed, right? I mean, obviously they lost Guilford, the wide receiver out of Indiana, and then Roseby Labentis. I think that was the only two guys they've actually lost. I think they've done a really good job as far as like, if you're committing early, you're staying. And by the way, again, I'll stress again, the closer they are to State College, the better the chances are they stick. So that's a great sign when you have Leighton Von Brant in Delaware and you have obviously Khalil Taylor and Keemon Spell. I mean, there is a common thread to that. Labentis obviously is a New Jersey guy. I think that's a little bit of a different situation. But I think if you look at the trends, like those local guys or these in-state guys or that 200-300 mile radius, like they do often stick. Now, obviously, schools aren't going to stop recruiting Keemon Spell, number 8 in the country, number 1 at running back. I did a story with him last week. We talked about it a little bit. He admitted that schools have been plugging away. What I will come back to is there's a handful of schools doing stupid, silly things right now. USC, Miami, Oregon, a couple others, Texas Tech. I can name a couple others. Even Michigan to some degree. Kind of lately, it's been they've been throwing some serious money around, but they had to because their class was really far behind. So there are some schools to watch. It's to me like, if you were to flip to an Ohio State or Notre Dame or something, I know we don't want to talk about that. But if that were to happen, I don't know that it would really be about money in the end. I really don't, because yes, some of those schools have more, but they're not as far off from Penn State as you would think. And this is something we've talked about a good bit.
I want to say something here that's going to be stupid. I don't know how to couch this, and I'm already doing the thing where I'm qualifying. Running back is not tackle, guard, quarterback, or quarterback, receiver, defensive end, corner. It's not one of those foundational pieces in football when you're building a team. In college, it's different. Like when you have a great running back, we've seen what it can do for an average to below average offensive line. But still, if we're now in this world where money matters and it's, every dollar spent somewhere else, it's a zero-sum game, our team's going to go hard after a Keemon Spell outside of the scope of what Penn State is offering.
It's not often a position that is making crazy money, but it just depends on, all you need is one school to value them, right?
Right.
So it's just hard to say, right? I do think he's a very special player. We're not going to throw Saquon and Singleton around there. It's long way to go before, we point out, special high school prospects. But this year's going to tell us a lot, because he was behind 2 seniors last year, both of whom are going on to play, I think, Division II college now. And, so he's going to carry that rock and really be the leader of that team even more. And it's a kind of a option offense, right? So there's a reason he puts up gaudy numbers. They do run a ton, and I'm sure there's some young guys coming up that'll, help sprinkle out those carries. But we're going to learn a lot about Keemon Spell. Don't get me wrong, we already know a lot. We know he's a special talent, but this season is going to be, if there's one guy that I'm really looking forward to watching every Saturday or, at least catching the highlights, it's Keemon Spell. So, but we still haven't even talked about the rankings, Steve. So let me get into that a little bit. Truthfully, again, there weren't a whole lot of changes. These ranking updates were a lot that have to do with, we're merging rivals in 1-3 right now. Mm-hmm. We have to clean up the industry rankings. They're hard changes, don't get me wrong, but a lot of those changes have kind of happened a little bit more back in mid-May or so. I thought Teddy Gerard is an interesting one. I'm going to have a story on him later today. He's a good-looking quarterback that came up and camped at Penn State back in, I want to say mid-June. I want to say June 8th, or maybe it's June 1, one of those two camps. And seems to have actual way more interest in Penn State than I originally thought. Now, he's from Georgia as well. He's going to have every SEC school after him. We'll see. But he climbed up, I think, over 50 spots to number 52 in the country. And just a player to keep an eye on, just because I do – don't get me wrong. I mean, Peter Bork and Keegan Crozier, those are going to be the guys I think we're primarily focused on. But, for our subscribers, I'll have the story up. If I don't have it up today, I promise I'll have it up early tomorrow. I think you're going to read it and you're going to say, oh, this is interesting. He seems pretty interested in Penn State, or more than I expected, at least from a Georgia quarterback. Matthew Gregory, Khalil Taylor, Leighton Von Brandt, and Matthew Hiller, right? Going back to the top, like they're all top 40 prospects.
Yep.
Matthew Gregory continues to rise. I mean, he only moved up a handful of spots, but man, he's going to be a massively important player for Penn State moving forward. Killer speed, still has a lot to learn. I think his route running and all those kind of things. But him being a top 40 player right now is exciting, I think, from Penn State perspective. But then we keep coming back to, well, the higher they're ranked, the more silly some schools get with guys. So time will tell with that one. But it's really the big takeaway, just to get to the cliff notes. The big takeaway right now is Pennsylvania has 11 guys in the 2027 Rivals 300, which is awesome. And they have 5 top 100 players, guys. 5 top 100 players at the moment. That's more than that is as much as New Jersey, who has 3, Virginia, who has 1, and Maryland, who has 1 combined. That's not something we see very often. Even Ohio only has 1 top 100 player at the moment. So between Terrence Smith and Hiller, obviously Matthew Gregory, and then the other 2 commits, there's a precedent here where Penn State could actually really do a good job landing some of these guys. I think getting commitments from them early is important, especially when they're local and they can continue to visit. Penn State can do everything they can to keep schools, at bay, I guess you would say. So Gregory, I think Hiller's going to go the distance. He kind of seems, just from talking to him, I could see him being an official visit guy. But someone like Terrence Smith and Gregory, like I would circle those guys as players that Penn State should really push for and try and get early commitments for. And obviously they will with Hiller as well. Talking to Hiller as much as I do, I get the sense he's going to take his time.
He's visited a lot, but not a guy that's been camping at Penn State. And I think that there's a difference there. This past year specifically, I don't believe he was camping at Penn State a whole lot, even though he was on campus for a lot of the 7-on-7s, a lot of the camps.
Yeah, he went and visited other schools, as he should.
Right.
As he should.
Right.
He needs to do that.
My point being, guys who are invested at Penn State typically camp a lot so they can work with Troutwine. Like, that's the reason they're coming up, is so that they can get that advanced work. And that this is a guy, it feels like this is a guy that's there. That's obviously, he wants to be on campus a lot, but not somebody who is bought all the way in, maybe, if that's fair to say.
Well, I mean, Penn State, yes and no. I see what you're saying. Penn State's not top 2, 3 with him at the very end. Be shocked. Like, they're going to be there in the end. He's visited Penn State 3 times as much as every other school combined, or not every school combined, but he's been to Penn State a ton. I think that's what it was more about this year, because he has camped with Troutwine before. He did last year, obviously.
Sure, yeah, that's what I mean.
And then he did come to last batch too. He just didn't camp in the last batch, so he did visit twice this year. So just I feel good about where they're going with Hiller. I think it's just going to take time to really know. But just a couple other things that grab my eye real quick. Like, one, I think we're still really sleeping on Gabriel Jenkins. I was talking to a source about him. By the way, out of Imani Christian, I should probably give the background, right? Out of Imani Christian, it's going to be a safety or a linebacker. Right now we have as a high 3-star, but just from talking to different sources around Penn State, like they kind of look at him more as like a top 5, top 6 player in the state. We have him at like 13 at the moment. So there's some things that are going to get worked out there, but I'll keep hitting on this point because this is a massively important recruit for Penn State, who right now is outside that top 300, and I think should get back in there at some point. And then last couple of things, when I'm looking at position groups, wide receiver right now, it's 39 wide receivers in the top 300 for the 2027 Rivals 300. 10 of them have already visited Penn State. I think that's an encouraging sign. We have about a quarter of those guys already on campus. Time will tell. Obviously keep Khalil Taylor committed, but if you can add a Matthew Gregory or an Ivan Lewis, there's Anthony Henderson. Like there's some other guys in the region where I do think there's a chance that they can get 2 top 200 kind of receivers. Obviously, if they stay that high in the rankings, of course. Offensive line is really deep as well. That's another group where you have Oloba. I'm not very good at pronouncing that name. But Terrence Smith, of course, Brody McNeil, Carter Jones, Cameron Wagner, Peyton Miller's another one down in Texas who's really high on Trout. Has visited at least, I think, maybe once or twice now. Definitely visited at least once. There's a good framework there. So like wide receiver, there's a good depth of talent. That's where I'm getting at. Offensive tackle, offensive line overall, good depth of talent for 2027. What worries me a bit is when I look at the defensive side. Right now, Penn State's only pursuing one top 300 player in the region, and Joseph Buchanan. There's one other one. I don't have his name off the top of my head. I apologize. But, they haven't really even pursued him yet. He's kind of a leaning towards Rutgers kind of guy. We'll see. And then just defensive back, man. Defensive back is not stacked in the area when it comes to four-star talent. I do really like guys like Khalid Taylor and Jonathan Gillette. Brady Scott's another one. But, when you look at that top 300 talent and the guys that Penn State have offered so far, it's very national heavy. It's very national heavy for defensive line as well. So that's just something to keep an eye on because it's you need talent in your region. Penn State's always going to do better with regional guys.
We'll do our best here to keep an eye on it, but Ryan, you're the best at keeping your eye on it. So we'll be leaning on you for that over the next coming months and year until we're at this point in 2026, talking about what happened with the class of 2027, but a great opening salvo to understand the region and where Penn State is with all these football players. Now we're going to rewind the clock back to 2026, and we're going to get to our conversation with Isaac Chukura, committed defensive tackle in the class of 2026. Here's our conversation with him from earlier this week. Penn State fans, it's time to get to know another one of Penn State football's commits, the class of 2026, and something we haven't done here in a while. Honestly, that's on me. We should be getting to know these young men a little bit better here, especially on the show on the BWI YouTube channel. I'm Thomas Frank Carr, Ryan Snyder. Isaac Chukura, Penn State defensive tackle in the class of 2026, is joining us. Isaac, welcome, and thank you for taking some time to get to know us and for us to get to know you and for Penn State fans to get to know you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
So, Ryan, I know you've got a little bit of a background talking to Isaac a couple of times already, so I want to start with you because I just want to look. How this is going to work is we're just going to have a conversation, but, Ryan, I wanted you to kick things off and start this off for us.
Chukura. Let's get it right for fans, Isaac. Chukura,
Yep.
not Chukwurah, none of that stuff. It's Chukura. All right, let's get that right.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
the king at butchering names, so we're always gonna stress that right off the bat whenever we get you guys on the show. But I want to go a little bit through your background a little bit more. We've talked a lot of football, those kind of things. But did you always live in Delaware? Football related too. Let's start with just kind of growing up. I mean, did you always live in the Delaware area? Take me through your background.
Yeah, I always lived in the Delaware area. I play youth football in Delaware. My parents from Nigeria, so I'm like the first generation born in America. And that's really where they came to. So yeah, I always been in Delaware.
Do you have any siblings?
I have a half sister on my dad's side, but my mom and dad's only child.
So there's no little brothers coming up that I'm going to have to be scouting in the coming years. Okay, just making sure on that one. But you mentioned youth football there. I mean, how long have you been playing football? Any other sports you prioritized growing up? But just take me kind of through, up until you got to Carroll.
Yeah, I really started playing basketball first, but then I was like always a big kid at school. So a parent at my middle school wanted me to come out and play football. So that's when I tried football, and then I quickly fell in love with the sport, and that became my passion.
6th grade, 7th grade when you started playing football?
10 years old.
Okay.
So
you always a D lineman?
Yeah, always.
You never were like a fullback or anything like that? No, we don't have any fun videos of you as a youth?
I had one play at running back. I got a little 15-yard carry, so that's only. But other than
you
that,
get 6? They didn't put you on the goal line?
Nah. I ain't get 6.
Okay. T. Frank, go ahead, man. Anything you want to add? I can roll through, or you want to throw it to you?
I'm always fascinated about, kind of the football aspect of these things. I've watched your film, super impressed with what you did during your junior season. But you earned an offer during the virtual combine for the staff. What is it like to go through a virtual combine?
I would say it's real cool. I was just really focusing on like getting to try the times right, like the times I knew I can get. So like when they told me to make the combine, took it home with my trainer, and then I was really trying to make sure I got like the time I wanted. So I messed up a little bit, but I was able to actually get the time I wanted. So.
Yeah. So do you remember any of those numbers that caught everybody's attention and led you here?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I ran a 4.9 something on the 40, and then I jumped like almost a 9 on the broad, and then my 5'10" was like in the 4'6", 4'5" range. So then I just sent that over.
At 260 pounds, by the way, people, it's pretty good.
I was gonna say, like
especially
that is the impressive thing, is the size at which you're doing all those things, and of course, that gets you attention from Penn State. But Penn State isn't the only team that showed interest in you. Michigan State, Wisconsin, some other teams. Why did you decide to end your commitment early? Why not take it through the official visit process? Why not go through the full gambit of recruiting? What made you decide to pull the trigger on Penn State?
Pretty much because Coach Barnes, Coach Franklin, they really believed in me. Like before I even had all them other schools looking at me, Penn State was the first one to pull like trigger. Like I had like other schools talking to me, but nobody wanted to pull the trigger. And the Penn State's over the school I wanted to go to, and they pulled the trigger on me early. So that's why I feel like I was supposed to be there.
I mean, you committed during the spring eval period, right? Like we talked about this. Of course, you had Boston College, Virginia Tech, Wake Forest. They were kind of the ones who offered. I put in with Michigan State, Wisconsin. Because remember, we had to talk about, you said they were going to come down, maybe scout you during the eval period. Have schools been knocking on the door ever since you committed or anything like that? Have you dealt with anybody texting here and there trying to get you to visit during the season? None of that?
Yeah, I've gotten a little text from some schools, but I really just kept my loyalty to the staff and just focus on like being a Nittany Lion. So
Well, I set you up perfectly there because I remember you told me Penn State was your dream school. Like, so what is that? Like, what does that mean? I mean, is it because you watched them growing up? Is it their history? I know academics are incredibly important to you. Maybe it's a combination of all that, right? But just what is it about them that makes you feel so strongly about them?
definitely is a combination of all that. Watching them growing up, like when I first started playing football, and like what positions, like my position they have at Penn State and all that. And then my parents, they liked it too. So like it was just it all fit for me. And yeah.
Okay. What are your okay? So T Frank, this is segueing into your half, but I gotta get this one in there because we watched him at camp, and your hands and your feet were incredibly impressive. I did not realize how well, from a technique perspective, and how far advanced you are compared to most. I think you were probably ahead of most of the guys maybe in this class as far as that's concerned, and maybe last even a couple of years, at least from the clips we got to watch. But what are your strengths as a football player, right? I mean, that's what kind of grabbed my attention. But when you think of something that just kind of comes natural to you, whatever it may be, what stands out right away?
Definitely my get off. I feel like if I can beat somebody off the line, then I can beat them to in the backfield. So I just really prioritize that. Always have my train my feet, my footwork, and all that. So I'll definitely say like my quickness and my first step for sure.
Okay.
So watching your film, even beyond the highlights, you're an impressive offensive lineman. I think that you do a very good job on the offensive side of the ball. How does that help you as a defensive lineman? Because you play tackle at a pretty high level. Does that give you an insight of how to defeat linemen? And how has that shaped you as a defender?
Yeah, I would definitely say like it definitely helped me because if you really know what the offense is doing and how they're going to try to attack you, it helps you plan on how you're going to like try to get off different type of blocks or like different kind of run schemes or pass sets and all that. So knowing like what I would do, how I would beat that helps me on the defensive side for sure.
I mean, that just speaks to a certain IQ for you as a football player. We talk about football IQ as this like general thing, but being able to apply lessons from one side of the ball to the other, I think it shows up in your game. And I guess from that perspective of having that understanding of football at the level you do, then it becomes about the physical side of things. So from your development plan between now and Penn State, what do you have in mind? Do you have a conversation with the staff about where they want you to be when you enroll? What's your plan between now and when you enroll at Penn State in terms of what size and strength level you arrive at?
Definitely need to be way stronger. Definitely got to add weight from moving from defensive end in high school to a defensive tackle in college. And, it's a whole nother ball game in college. So definitely putting on good weight, not just, they really emphasize not just throwing on weight. Make sure the weight comes natural, muscle mass, all that. So definitely not trying to, like, just throw on any type of weight, just making sure it's good weight. And, just trying to bulk up as much as I can by the time I get there.
T-Frank, I'm going to cut you off quick. What is your weight right now? We said 260 earlier. What do you know where you're at right now?
Yeah, 266 this morning.
Okay. Have they give you a size? Like, do they want you 280, anything like that?
Yeah, I gave my own size, trying to get to 275 by like camp, like in August, so I can really play around that 270 area and see how well I can move and all that stuff.
Okay.
I like it. I love that. We've talked about this here on the show. This started with kind of offensive linemen on the other side of the ball, where guys would commit early and then they would come to camp and they'd get work at these summer camps with their position coaches of the future. So, what did you? Because you did that this summer as well. What did you learn from Deion Barnes at camp that you want to take with you to your senior season?
One thing in particular, like when we was working like footwork and bag drills, like bringing my hand, like my matching my hands with my feet and all that kind of stuff. Like not only getting your hands up there and using a move, but making sure your hands are violent, shoulders violent, all that type of stuff.
How valuable was that instruction time? Was there? How much do you think that it helped you not only learn about football, but learn about what to expect when you get to Penn State? Was there kind of an intro course that you could have, kind of a soft opening to what might be at Penn State when you're enrolled full time?
Yeah, it was definitely good seeing like how much I can learn and all that. Like seeing how he would coach me and how I would respond to his coaching. So just keep on building the relationship, like other than just texting and calling on the phone, but like how we we're together, player coach on the field. So I think that time was crucial for me and Coach Barnes and the rest of the D line staff.
So it's kind of like an interpersonal thing, a tactile thing of you get to know him as much as he gets to know you in that work sense, as opposed to just on the phone, which when you're not doing football, I imagine there's a different way of conversing, right? I imagine it's a little different than being on the phone. Than he's coaching you on the field, and just it's an intensity level, I imagine. Is that a good description?
Yeah, definitely.
I think the thing that I found most impressive, Isaac, is that you played through multiple injuries so far in your career, including, from what I could see, in the playoffs last year. So what did that teach you about yourself, and what did you learn about your own limits through that?
Yeah, I just really learned that pain's temporary, and like if you can push through it, like I tell myself, I can push through it, I'm gonna push through it. Especially missing more than half of my sophomore year, I told myself I would not leave the field at all my junior year, and really like if somebody has to take me off the field, they're gonna have to take me off the field because I wasn't coming off.
Do you find I guess did you find a new level there too of kind of resolve within yourself? Because you sound absolutely like, even I can feel it through you right now of how you felt then. But is that something you knew was there the whole time, or was this something that when that happened you said absolutely not? Like it was something in you that you could feel change.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, definitely just feeling that come out of me and just seeing that I can push through injury and stuff like that. Definitely shine a new light on me.
Awesome, man.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's what I got. Ryan, what do you?
I got to finish with some fun stuff. We got to get to know you a little bit more, okay? I like to. The reason I asked if you grew up in Delaware, I mainly just want to know: are you a Birds fan or what? Like, who's your favorite NFL team?
Go Birds, yeah,
Go
sure.
Birds all day. That's what I like
Yes,
to hear.
sir.
Are you Sixer? Are you Philly? Everything?
Yeah, Philly, everything.
Nah, we gotta make this guy a 4-star. Love him. All right, have you played? I'm kidding,
So
fans. That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Huh?
You know, I gotta joke around. Have you played NCAA football yet? And most importantly, if you have, which I think you have, everybody has, right? How do you do dynasty mode? Do you start with like a max school? Do you start just with Penn State right away? Come on, take me through it. Have you played dynasty yet?
I have played, but I haven't started dynasty yet. So I have two teammates from my 25 class that just went to UAB. I'm waiting for them to get put in the game. Then I'm gonna do the UAB rebuild, all that.
I like
But like,
that.
I don't really like starting in with the Penn State because I can win a natty on 1 year
Right.
on that. So
See, us older people, we didn't play online all the time. I mean, don't worry, I'm not that old. We did have it back in the day, but like most of like my kids and stuff, all they do is play with their friends. They don't play dynasty mode. Where me, like that's all I grew up on. So I got to ask about that. But so which college football stadium are you looking forward to playing in? Not Beaver Stadium, of course, but if there's one college football stadium, whether it's Big Ten or wherever, like man, where are you looking forward to getting to see in the coming years?
definitely Death Valley.
Death Valley.
Yeah.
They got to get a. Do you think? What do you think? James Franklin's going to schedule a non-conference with LSU? I don't know, buddy.
We gotta make it. We gotta make it happen because I definitely want to play in the stadium like that.
They're talking about SEC Big Ten, kind of doing some matchmaking here down the road. Maybe we'll get that in the back half.
2029 Big Ten SEC Challenge, baby. How about
Yeah.
that?
Hey, I'd love to go down there to cover a game. That'd be fun as heck. So,
Just
all right.
don't make it early September, please, for all our sake. Make it.
Yeah, never mind. I'm not going.
Everyone who lives up here in the Northeast is not interested in going down in the humidity.
I'm sweating just walking outside, man. It's terrible. I can imagine what it's like in Baton Rouge. All right, last two things, man. Obviously, of course, every up and coming prospect wants to go to the NFL one day. I know that's probably your dream too. But if you do not go to the NFL, what's your dream job, man? What do you see yourself doing in 10, 15 years?
Definitely starting a real estate business with my two closest friends. We got both of our, all three of our parents, already do that. So I feel like that would be cool if all three of us can start something in that field.
See, I should have did that instead of this, T. Frank. I'd probably be making
I was
a lot
going to
more
say,
money right now.
I did not have a good life plan at 17, 18. I had a terrible one. That's
I respect it, man. I know I wanted to work in sports, but looking back, I wish I owned a lot of property right now. That'd be nice. Last thing, man, give me something that people don't know about Isaac Chukwurah. Like, was there anything maybe your friends, your family know about you? You got any talents, any skills? Give me something that I don't know, Penn State fans don't know. Can you think of anything?
I would say just recently I just picked up fishing. So I just want to, because I know by this time next year I'm going to be at college, grinding. So I'm really just trying to have fun this summer. So I picked up fishing with a couple of my teammates and stuff like that. So
you going to the bay? Like, take me. Where are we going? Creeks, ponds? You got a bay down there?
We started up in ponds real quick, and then we're going expand.
Awesome,
well,
man.
there's excellent trout fishing here. I went kayaking the other day, and I almost ran into about 5 trout fishermen. So if you get good at it, like there's plenty of places around town.
If you get good at it, T-Fank's going to run you over one day in a kayak.
That's the end of the
story.
Speed running down Spring Creek in Bellefonte. Yeah, that's exactly how it went.
Awesome.
Isaac, appreciate the time. This has been a lot of fun getting to know you. And, of course, Penn State fans are going to get to know you much better throughout the next couple of years as we follow your career here at the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel and, of course, at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Thanks so much for being with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.